guys, welcome back. This is my stick. There are many like it, but this one's mine. Don't worry, it has the full stock, not an assault stick. Guys, today we're going to be working on the Ranger, but I've got beef. Hello, Super ATV? Yeah, we need to have a talk. Let's roll into the intro. See, I told you guys there would be an intro. Real quick, before we get started with today's video, I want to give you guys a huge thank you. There was phenomenal response on the first video. You guys are absolutely crushing it, and it makes me really excited to keep pushing on these projects, keep making stuff happen, and keep making content to keep you guys entertained. I got to give my buddy Nick at MotoFied a big shout out. He's the one who helped me get the wheel, that big fat tire onto the CBR, that 240, that big wide boy. Hit him up if you guys have any motorcycle stuff in the Milwaukee area. He does powder coating, he does custom builds, he does tire mounting. If you need work done on spoked wheels, he's the best dude in the area. His new powder coating setup is awesome. All around, he's a solid dude. I'm going to put his website in the description. Thank you again to everybody. You guys are fucking awesome. Let's keep crushing it. Let's get some work done. Now, for those of you that are like me, and if you're installing your lift onto a machine that's a decade old, that has been driven through swamps and across trails, and it's been wet, and it's, lived its entire life in Wisconsin, you're gonna have issues with rust. Now, there is no question at all that these welded parts look fantastic. The fabrication stuff is great. But I had to buy complete sets of all new hardware for all of these pieces. Okay, not the end of the world. How much can a couple nuts and bolts cost? They cost that much. And we needed this many sets. Yeah, you see how this is getting a little frustrating? Okay, here's one more. The reason that we have all new bushings is because this is how the parts show up. They didn't come with bushings. So they didn't come with hardware. They didn't come with bushings. What else didn't they come with? They didn't come with ball joints. Now, those of you who are full-grown adults who have a longer attention span would have read all the way through the ad and seen that in fine print at the very bottom below recommended other parts, it says, does not include ball joints. In the instructions, it says to reuse your ball joints. I'm no paleontologist, but I'm not putting back on ball joints that came off a decade-old vehicle that has thousands of hours of use. So we ended up upgrading to newer ball joints, and I went with the Moose. These are the ball joints. We've got new wheel bearings as well. Now, this whole stack of parts did not come with the lift. None of the bushings came with the lift. None of the hardware came with the lift. The rest of this stuff all did come with the lift. And overall, I've got to say I'm impressed. It didn't come with a hard set of instructions. The instructions are online, and you have to download it, which is where you find out that it has to reuse all the OEM hardware. So if you're planning on doing this lift yourself, and you don't have a machine that was stored in storage and spit shined and has zero rust on the entire thing, this is how much extra you can plan on spending. Yeah, guys, these videos aren't cheap. Please like, subscribe, share, do all the YouTube stuff. Let's get monetized, because I'd love to keep doing this stuff. My wallet hurts, guys. All right. That brings us on to the shocks. Those are awesome. We already talked about those. I'm done complaining. We're going to get to actual work, and we're going to make this thing happen. let's do some work. I'm going to do a quick review on what's already done in the rear here. This is part of the instructions, so if you guys buy this lift, you're going to get a very detailed set of instructions on how to do that. That's not a huge concern. Now, for those of you that are doing this yourself, getting these old CV axles out is an absolute nightmare if they're seized up like mine were. How seized up were they? Well, we ended up having to weld the entire CV cup together and then put a trailer hitch on to use as a slide hammer to get them out. On both sides. It was bad. But my recommendation, should you get to the point where prying, and guys, I soaked it with liquid wrench for a week before I started working on it. We used mallets, we used pry bars, we used a come along. They were in there. My recommendation, this worked great. Use a slide hammer, use something that you can use to get it out of there, and just weld the whole thing together. Now, once those are out, the rest of this is pretty straightforward. You tear all the old stuff out, you throw all the new stuff in. I'm going to throw in a quick video on what we did to make sure that these were the correct length, because they ended up not being the correct length, which I showed earlier, which you could see by that wheel being kicked way out. Now, we're going to roll into that video now, where we show you how to do this. Suspension setting time. We're going to use the instructions and the dimensions that were given to us from the company that designed this lift. What we're trying to avoid is having the wheel angled too far in one way or the other. Positive camber, negative camber to an extreme degree in either direction is not good for your car. The guys that have those cars that are slammed onto the ground and their wheels are on that super harsh angle, yeah, they're idiots. What we're going to do is we're going to take this number, which is a measurement from the center line here to the center line here. We're going to use a pair of squares and a yardstick so that we can measure that actual dimension to make sure that these are right. Now, when this is done, it's actually going to have to be rolled back and forth a couple times, and we're going to have to push the suspension a little bit and then make any fine-tune adjustments later. This is a primary setup just to make sure that it's close to where it needs to be so that we're not dead in the water later where the suspension is nowhere near where it's supposed to be. And we are putting the proper dimensions. We're just verifying that these are where they're supposed to be. I'm actually going to switch you guys to the camera up there so that I can work on this, and I'll just look up and talk to you so you'll get to see me like this. What we're doing here is we are measuring from the center line to the center line to make sure that the overall length of this matches the number that we are given from the supplier, to make sure that this is the proper length before we throw it in. We know it's at least a little bit off just from looking at how it looked at before and where that wheel was in adjustment. So, Jaden, would you please line up the front? Up front. All right, front is centered, and we are at 19¼ inches. So right now this A-arm is 1/4 inch too long. What that means is that it's going to push the top out, and when you adjust your suspension like this, your pivot point, you're either pulling it back or pushing it forward, and I'll do it like this so you can see it. This is going to stay in place, and you adjust in or out to change the alignment of the wheel to adjust. We need to take and move these in to make them shorter, and that should help fix that angle. These have what's called a jam nut, which is just a nut on this shaft here. This is as simple as we take and bust that loose. We're going to bust that one loose. And we need to go in, so we're going to go 1 full turn in and see what that measures at. 1 full turn in and measure that. All right, Jaden, please hop on the front again. That's centered. All right, and that's our 19. That is now happy, and we can now tighten these up. Now, you want to leave these jam nuts loose until it's actually in the vehicle, which for this is going to be the Ranger, but even if you were doing it in a car, you want to leave these jam nuts loose. This has to turn completely. Leaving that a little bit loose allows it to fit into the groove where they sit on the vehicle a lot easier. This one is now set to the proper dimension. We are now exactly 19 inches center to center. Should make it a lot happier. We turned this thing in 5 full turns from where it arrived from the factory. As long as that number matches where it's supposed to, we'll throw them back on, check the alignment. I'm going to guess it's going to look a lot better. I'm not going to bore you guys with watching the second one, so we're going to get that one knocked out real quick, and then we'll move back on to putting the suspension back into place. Which brings us back to now. Our next project is we are going to use a clutch puller so that we can get this out. Now, to start with that, we're going to go ahead and pull this seat out of the way. We're going to go ahead and pull this storage bucket out of the way. And what that's going to do is it's going to give us access down in here to get this out. Now, I'm going to grab the tool, and this is an EPI clutch tool. This is a special tool that's designed to get that out. That's the number. Now I'm going to grab the tools to use this, and I'm going to get a camera set up so that you guys can see what's going on. Please stand by. I will be right back. And just like that, we're back. All right, guys, this is the 5/8 bolt that comes out of here. Make sure that you save that. It's got to go back in. This is your clutch removal tool. Please, so that your hardware can all live a long and happy life and so that you don't destroy any of your internal threads, start this by hand. This is a 7/8 that fits on here. We're just going to give that a little bit, make sure she's in the threads. All right, she's in there. As you can see, I've got the clutch held in place with a block because if you don't, this is just going to spin. I'm going to use the impact. If I can get my socket on. Gotta love new tools. I can count to potato. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to plug our ears and we're going to send this all the way in until that clutch pops loose. Alright, and just like that, we now have our clutch loose. So now, if you see inside of here, there's a spring, and it has some fingers. So now we get to go over and start on the next part of this process. This will be upgrading the clutch for a 2009 to 2014 Polaris Ranger. Up next. And it's go time. If you guys do end up buying this clutch, it is part number HLCKP800R-SX. I'll go ahead and leave that on the screen for a second. I'm not going to go super in depth on the instructions because if you buy this clutch, it's going to come with all the instructions. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through all of this, but you guys can just watch as I go. Okay, new spring is in the clutch. Clutch is all put back together. As you saw, I made sure that I lined up that witness mark and I blew all the garbage out of there. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the new belt in. We're going to put the clutch back in with the new spring and the heavier weights. We're going to do that right now. Oh, and we're almost done. Time to put the cover back on. Well, guys, I just spent the last 10 minutes looking for the bolts to put this cover back on. Now, we have a system in place. When we disassembled this, my friends were helping me, and we labeled all of the hardware where they came out of so that when I went to reassemble it, it would be much easier. Well, these weren't labeled, and they were tossed in the bolts for the emergency brake, which this is not. So, that was fun. But I've got them, and now they're going in. So, back to work. I'm knocking out putting the e-brake back in. The e-brake is pretty simple. You got to get it lined up, and I gave it a little bit of love with a rubber mallet, and it popped right back in. So there's an entire 5-page process in the climber manual that tells you the whole instructions on how to replace your pads. There's ball bearings, there's springs, there's shims. It's a whole process. Guys, if you're going to do it, spend the $15, get the book. It makes life way easier. I'm going to finish reinstalling that and get that cable hooked up, and we're going to press forward. So I had to take the e-brake completely back apart because the thrust washer wasn't inside of it. Skip that part, didn't want to bore you guys with the details, but minus the slop in the driveline, the e-brake now holds. We're good to go. On to the next step. I'm going to put you guys back on the time lapse, and I am going to get the wheels off, the calipers back on, and run the new brake lines, and then go through and snug up all of the rear suspension stuff. Okay, rear calipers are on both sides. This one got a brand new one because I destroyed the old one. The new brake lines are on. All of the Zerk fittings have been turned so that they can be accessed and all of the greasable joints can be greased once it is back together. I went through and did a bolt check. I swapped the shocks around because I did the dumb and had them upside down. They are now right side up. I have to tighten the castle nuts and throw the cotter pins in, and then it's time to throw back a bunch of the components. Again, not going to bore you guys with this stuff, but basically what's going on here, those are for the front. This is going back in. We've got a bunch of air vents that are going back in. There's a new shock for the bed. And if all goes well, I'm probably going to leave the bed off for now. I'm going to have a buddy come help me bleed the brakes. But after this, we move to the front. Due to technical difficulties that can most accurately be described as me doing the dumb, I managed to not get the whole ending of that clip, so I'm going to do that now. I want to send out a huge thank you to everybody from the first video for liking, sharing, subscribing. You guys blew that video up, and it's awesome. It is so encouraging to see the support and the interest in the content that I'm creating. You guys are awesome. To all my friends, thank you again. To all my new subscribers and people that are just stumbling across this content, I hope you guys love it. Welcome to the Goober Garage. We're going to keep going. The next couple of videos are going to be assembly and tech tips on putting the lift and doing some custom sheet metal fab on the side-by-side. Not Your Grandpa's Golf Cart is almost done now. I'm going to go through and edit all the videos and get it all squared away. The next couple videos will be on that. Once that's finished, we're going to take it out and rip it. Why build it if you're not going to play with it? We're going to go blast it through the mud. We're going to go hit the trails. I'm going to call up some buddies, and we're going to go get into some heathen shenanigans. Should be a blast. You're not going to want to miss that. After that, we're back onto the Coronet. We're going to be doing the sheet metal fab in the trunk and the firewall. So that'll be plasma cutter, torches, welding, a lot of sparks flying. That's going to be fun. I can't wait. You guys are the best. I'm done for now. Whenever you're watching this, I hope you have a good day. I hope you have a great night. Go out and build something.